finally I'm participating. I can still remember being an IT engineering student in the crowd. The strobes. It's about to give me a seizure, but no, it's fine. And that was just NorthSec was a confirmation that cybersecurity was the career choice I wanted to make. So anyway, I have absolutely no segue from there, so let's talk about pollution. My name is Joey. I'm the team lead of one of the many detection engineering team at the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity. Previous to that, I filled various blue team roles, where my last one was in the CTI team working on APTs. I promise that this is the last AI-generated content in my slide, but it's not going to be the last cat. In my pastime, I happen to be a CTF enthusiast, and I've been a challenge designer for 5 years now. And I'm also involved with CyberSci as the coach of Team Canada in CTF. Canada has world-class cybersecurity talent and can be proud of winning gold medals for the 3 past European cybersecurity challenge competition. So that's quite an achievement here. I'm also involved in most high-profile incident response cases that the Cyber Center helped with. And if you watch TV shows, you might have also seen me on Le Gros Laboratoire on Radio-Canada. If not, here's a sample here. Now, the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity is part of the Communication Security Establishment, CSE, and is the federal government's operational and technical lead for cybersecurity. Our mandate is to offer cybersecurity services to various clients across the country, ranging from federal institutions to system of importance, these electronic systems of Latvia and Ukraine, and other systems designated as system of importance by the Minister of National Defense. In the critical infrastructure, we help all the levels of government, so whether you're municipal, provincial, territorial, and even indigenous. We help the energy sector, the finance sector, the telecommunication sector, and a lot more. So we had elections not too long ago. We help with that. The cyber defense branch that I'm part of offers a suite of tools and services and sensors to federal institutions. The portfolio of sensor and log collector let us cover most of the IT footprint of the Government of Canada. So we have various log aggregator, our very own host-based sensor, our very own cloud-based sensors, and a bunch of network sensors. Now, collecting data at that scale is already quite the endeavor. And here comes my problem, and why I want to talk about pollution and noise pollution. With over 167 clients, almost 1 million devices protected, 200,000 and more host events per second, that's a tsunami of data that has to be analyzed. Just to give an example, our manual and automated analysis is actioning about 3 billion network blocks every day to protect our clients. Now, my team is part of the Security Operations Center, and let me tell you that noise pollution causes a lot of pain, and it's resulting in alert fatigue. But to be honest, that noise pollution is caused by pain. Let me explain here. You might have heard of the infamous pyramid of pain. It's a great attempt at presenting the inside of your threat intelligence and what it can provide. The more you go up the pyramid, the more challenging it is for an actor to modify their TTPs. Now, which would technically make your detection future-proof. On the blue team side, you're also a victim of the same pyramid, where the bottom levels are often ephemeral and noisy. But in a mature SOC, defense in depth is key, and one can't ignore the lower part of that pyramid, even if it's painful to triage. This here is what you can't afford to miss. You can't miss an incident that's using known malicious infrastructure, especially when you're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in various feeds. Your board will simply not like it, that you're wasting the investment. But I'm here today to suggest ways to give glory back to the indicators of compromise. Let's avoid the IoCs from turning into indication of cacophony here. Of the many reasons why IoC-based detection can be noisy, there is deceptive data. You just don't have the right data. Capturing net flow data will not help you detect the encrypted web shell traffic that you have on your server. What you need is either full PCAP patcher with TLS offloading, or you need host data. Ignoring the intelligence part of CTI. Context matter here. That new fake CAPTCHA domain that you queried, well, if it's not starting from the Explorer process where a user did Windows R, pasted the command, and pressed Enter, you're likely looking at a false positive here. An imbalance of human activity. There's always more room for automation, but then at the same time, don't let automation hallucinate a response. There's many solutions here, like I said, to reduce the noise in your detection pipeline. But it ultimately boils down to 3 key points. You want to increase the quality of the telemetry used for detection. You want to increase the context presented to analysts. And you want to decrease the quantity of manual alert that has to be triaged, or you just risk alert fatigue and ultimately false negative assessments. To solve the problem of noise detection, detection engineers have to change their mindsets from detecting what is malicious to detecting what is legitimate. Exploring the noise one feature at a time is critical to lowering the noise itself. The solution here, building a 2220 knowledge base to provide enough context for triage analysts to be able to triage their alerts. So an analyst should be able, in 20 seconds, to identify the behavior they're looking at. In 2 minutes, they should be able to understand it. And in 20 minutes, they should be able to recognize how an actor would abuse that behavior here. Let's just demonstrate that here. It's a nice Friday afternoon, morning right now, but afternoon. It's 4 p.m., the sun is shining, it's a nice 30 degrees in Montreal, and you can smell that the weekend's coming here. You get a notification, new critical alert to triage in your alerting platform. Oh no. The local IP of your clients is uploading 2 GB of data to an IP tag by your CTI team as Volt Typhoon, and it's doing it over port 7680. That's it. That's your alert. What do? Do you triage by discarding it, or do you escalate it? Now, assessing the alert without additional information is just wrong. In that case here, artificial intelligence was even hallucinating an incorrect explanation, and we didn't have any knowledge base that was rich enough to provide context. And as a detection engineer, I should have packaged a 2220 definition, allowing an analyst to triage by the alert by identifying, understanding, and finding abuse of this behavior here. So let's just build one together. Time to build one so that we never have to do it in the future. Let's start with the hypothesis that any traffic with port 7680 is indicative of delivery optimization. We're going to deep dive into it in 22 minutes and 20 seconds, but please don't time me. Analysts should be able to identify delivery optimization in about 20 seconds. So here's what you need to know. It is a Windows 10 and 11 feature that is cloud managed by Microsoft, and it features a peer-to-peer client and downloader service, normally over port 7680. It is not malicious at all. And the content that you're downloading via delivery optimization is normally Windows updates, Windows Store apps, and Windows Defender definition updates. The download is orchestrated and downloaded via Microsoft servers, network peers, and the Microsoft Connected Cache. And that's it. Port 7680 is all you need to remember on how to identify this. But let's get a little more technical and understand how it works. Delivery optimization is a service, so you'll find information about it in the registry. It is started by SVC host under the network service user. The DLL that it uses is all in system 32, so dosvc.dll, and that's pretty much it for it. Like I said already, it is on by default on Windows 10 and 11, and the expected result of using delivery optimization is supposed to have a result of having reduced bandwidth usage and a faster update process. Now, let's run you through one of the examples. Take a classic patch Tuesdays. You have to download a 700 megabyte new patch. It's great. Now, looking at the entire fleet of Windows machines that Microsoft has of 1.4 billion devices worldwide, that's quite a lot of terabytes to download on a Tuesday, let's say that way. And if we tune it down to your deployment or our deployment of about 1 million devices, it's still 700 terabytes of data that has to cross our various sensors, and it's causing a lot of pollution here. Now, the way that delivery optimization works is that it's going to take the full update, split it into equally sized chunks. Some of the chunks are going to be downloaded via Microsoft servers. Some of the chunks are going to be downloaded via peer-to-peer. And then some of the chunks are going to be downloaded via Microsoft Connected Cache. And then delivery optimization checks that it's the right file that it downloaded, and you're done. That's how it works. But if you truly want to understand how adversaries are cloaking their activities as a legitimate feature of the OS, you need to master how it can be abused. And that's a good thing that we have 20 minutes left for this. Delivery optimization works in 3 phases. The first one is that the service needs to receive a task from other processes. Then you're going to download the metadata, so the information about the file you're about to download, and the file itself is the last step. For the task, delivery optimization uses RPC calls as its inter-process communication. Now, what it means is that COM objects are exposed for any services to call. It functions similarly to bits, if you're familiar with this. The task received, the services that are normally tasking it are the Windows Update service, of course, the Microsoft Store one, and you can also download a PowerShell script on GitHub that lets you play with it. To give an example, I'm taking here the Windows Update Delivery Optimization Ecosystems, or WUDO. On the left, you have Windows Update, and on the right, Delivery Optimization. Well, Windows Update is going to call a bunch of COM interfaces sequentially to ask for a file to be downloaded. So it's going to add the file to the job, get transfer information. It's the classic inter-process communication here. Now, the problem with COM telemetry is that you can't look at that. It's way too noisy. But there are great forensics artifacts on a machine if you want more information. There's a file called dosvcd state.dat that is high formatted. So you can open it with your registry editor, even though it's not in the registry. I don't make these decisions. Anyway, it's got the jobs. So those are the individual file downloads. And it's got the swarms, which are all the connections that you've made with peers. So you can investigate these tasks. There's also some built-in PowerShell commands that you can use on your machine to get more information about these tasks as well. And we're done. That's the task. That's how delivery optimization knows that it needs to do something. So let's get started with the metadata. Delivery optimization will want to know first, where is the closest data center that is physically located to me? For this, it's going to call the Geo API of Microsoft, which is going to respond with the public IP address that you have, as well as the next step you want to hit. So KV601 in that example here is the closest data center to me, physically. As a blue teamer, though, you want to make sure that no malware are abusing the Microsoft API to try to evade your classic detonation public IP resolution. So it's not going to use what's my IP. It could be using Geo. It's free. Let's hit KV601. So the key value API call is going to give you a large list of all the next steps that you need to follow with a bunch of config information. But what interests me here is disk 601 and CP 601, which are the closest data center to me again. So let's hit CP 601. This one is the content-specific policy. It's going to give me what's important here, the hash of hashes. I'm going to go back to it. But think of it as the file integrity hash of your whole download. And it's going to give you a link to a file called pieces hash. Let's go get this one. The pieces hash file will give you the hash of hashes again, which is the same one we had previously. And it is the SHA-256 of the full file you want to download. Your hash of hashes is also going to give you the size of each of these chunks for delivery optimization. So in that case, 1 megabyte is the default. And the pieces are each going to have their own SHA-256. So you're going to know for sure that you're downloading the right thing, even though that's done over HTTP. At least they're comparing the hash between the two services. Now, if your computer is configured to be only using Microsoft servers, it ends there. You're only going to download that from Microsoft servers, and the job's done. But there's also a peer-to-peer system, which I want to talk about. if your device chooses to download the file over peer-to-peer, you need to join the array that's the closest to you. When you're torrenting Linux ISOs, it's the equivalent of asking for a tracker for a list of peers to connect to. So we're going to make a call for disk 601, which is going to give us our closest array, which is exactly what we want to join. So we're going to hit join on array. What's going to come back from Microsoft is a list of about 250. If you do it again, it's different peers. But it's going to give you a list of peers, which are machines that have the file you want and that are ready to share with you. You'll get their peer ID, the IP address to reach them on, and the port. If other hosts have joined the array from the same public IP as yourself, their internal IP are returned by the API. Otherwise, you only get their external IP. So think of it as kind of a silent port 7680 scanner if you can reach that. This means that if you can get access to a network, you can technically conduct a network scan without ever touching any of these hosts. And as of a couple of months ago, both the internal and external IPs were returned when you queried that API. But that has since been patched, so shouldn't happen anymore. Now, if I make a little summary here, delivery optimization, you can just see that it's working correctly when you see it doing a bunch of queries sequentially to a bunch of different APIs. But how does it look like on your EDR? That's the question I ask myself. Digging into the legitimate features can sometimes uncover weird behavior from your own security tools. And as a mandatory disclaimer here, what I'm about to explain has since been improved on our own host-based sensor. So I recommend still taking a look at your own EDR to see if this flawed logic impacts you here. We're expecting the first query to be on geo. So that's technically the real network query. First one, geo.microsoft.com. What our EDR was reporting was array 618. Sure. OK, let's look at the next one. KV601, Akamai Edge. I'm not getting what I expect here. CP601, Akamai Edge. OK, Akamai is resolving everything now. DL.delivery, whatever. Oh, we're getting the right one. I'm even more confused here. Disk 601, we're back on Akamai. And the last one, array 601, now we're hitting array 601. Please help me, someone, I don't understand. Actually, I do now. And it's always DNS. When you're making a query for KV601, you're not getting an A record. You're getting a CNAME, which points to a load balancer system. And this load balancer edge key is giving you another CNAME for Akamai here. And then Akamai is giving you an IP address, an A record. So what that means is that if a host doing a query for the initial domain would, when it's making a query for a KV601, it's the last domain in the CNAME chain that it's storing in its DNS cache. And because an EDR has no way to inspect the traffic that you have, it has to rely on that DNS cache to map the IP back to the domain. So if what you have in your DNS cache is just wrong and incomplete, that's what the EDR is going to report anyway. And because the initial domain has followed a CNAME chain, you lose the expected mapping that you wanted from the original domain queried. So your IOC detection here will just not work in your EDR. One way to see the behavior in action is to just look at the event sequentially. So you'll see pairs of events, the first one being right, and the second one being wrong. But like I said earlier, that's not impacting our host-based sensor anymore, but you might want to confirm if your own EDR does that. We're done with metadata. Let's download the file itself. The first thing, if your computer chooses to use peer-to-peer delivery optimization, is that it's going to start a listener on port 7680. The file is going to be transferred by your network over a protocol called Swarm. It's a proprietary Microsoft protocol here, not documented anywhere as usual. And what you're going to get that's important here in the handshake is that you'll get the SHA-256 of the file, as well as the peer ID of yourself. And if the other computer at the other end has the same file, it's going to respond back with the same hash, as well as its own peer ID. So what's important here? 75 bytes response, 75 bytes answer. That means that the file is being shared on delivery optimization. If there was a 0-byte response, it means that the other host would not have it at all. And that's how you can see it in your EDR here. That is the only the part of the swarm protocol that's been fuzzed in open source. And delivery optimization runs with SCD bugs permission. So please try to fuzz the other one and contribute back if you have time, because it's kind of important that this one gets audited. Now, if you see in your EDR that more than 75 bytes were transferred, more data than that, it means that a file was shared over peer-to-peer delivery optimization. By default on Windows 10 and Windows 11, delivery optimization is configured to share files on the local network only. But here's the little neat option. I have a pointer. It doesn't work. Here. Once you enable that option here, it lets you share files with anyone on the internet, even that IP that your CTI team tagged as Volt Typhoon. Now, as part of each 2020 definition, I find it interesting to look at the whole fleet to understand how popular a behavior is, even if it's not malicious, which it isn't in that case. Looking at our entire client base, we see that 66% of the hosts are sharing, have a port 7680 listener open on the host, meaning that delivery optimization is activated. Of these 66%, 54% of them have shared over 1 megabyte of data over delivery optimization. Of these 54%, there's 20% of them that shared over the internet. You might think that it's only one client, but it's half of them. Half of them have at least one host sharing delivery optimization files over the internet. While delivery optimization is not a threat, and it's a feature that's supposed to speed up updating process, it is a nightmare for SOC analysts. We buy thread feed from most major vendors, consume most MISP and open source feeds. And all these stats here, they sum up to 7% of our entire fleet going to the internet. That's an impressive amount of hosts, making an impressive amount of connections to random IPs, suspicious, malicious, whatever we have. And without the 20-20 filter, it would just result in an unsustainable amount of alerts to filter. And I'm done with my 20-20 filter here. And as a next step, my recommendation would be for you to assess if delivery optimization is configured the way you expect in your own network. I will myself keep focusing on identifying, understanding, and finding sources of abuse of more operating system features. And detection engineers should also focus more on finding and signaturing legitimate behaviors. As blue teamers, we need to keep focusing on reducing the noise that gets to our SOC analysts. That's the only way that we can regain trust in IOC detection here. If you want to get started, that's your slide to take a picture of. If you want to get started, there's plenty of open source research that's done to imitate the same recipe here. Encyclopedia documents most Windows files and processes in depth, and it's also linking to rules on how to abuse it and how to detect abuses. If you like the Sigma format, it speaks like Sigma. The MITRE ATT&CK framework, well, it needs no introduction, but its data source section is great at quickly identifying these legitimate behaviors. My favorite here, living off the land. The name says exactly what it is. It lists a ton of projects around various use cases of legitimate and less legitimate OS features. And behind each repository on it, there's hundreds of techniques that will help you build your knowledge base. Have a look at the WTF bins and living off the false positive, quite interesting. Now we're back with this. I told you that I would delegate that part here. Fortunately, we built a 20-20 filters to help here. By doing data fusion with your EDR data and your network data, we're now able to identify that it follows the regular delivery optimization process chain here. A pre-computed verification routine can also confirm that it is delivery optimization, and it generates a tag on the alert to help us understand what we're seeing. And luckily for us, there's even someone that presented at NorthSec 2025 about delivery optimization, and the system added a link to the YouTube video of this talk here. Now, you're the analyst. How do you triage this? Do you triage it? Do you discard it? Or do you escalate it? And if you guessed that discarding it was the right answer in that case, you are correct. The poor IP address was probably used was probably compromised infrastructure in that case that was used as a relay box. But our client happened to share Windows updates with it. That always happens. On that note, that's it for me today. And I'm wishing you an incident-free Friday, and I will see you soon with the next 2220.